get you to get ready. Good afternoon and welcome to the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee of the City of Lethbridge, and we'll have a roll call to commence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Acting Mayor Campbell.
Present.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
Councillor Parker.
Here online.
And also in addition, other members of council here are Councillor Crowson and Councillor Carlson.
There he is.
Pardon me? Or Deputy Mayor Carlson. So we have quorum is established.
Good. Thank you very much. The adoption of the agenda?
Yeah. So you read.
Nope.
Okay. So
Move you faster. There we go. Excellent. All right, so the adoption of the agenda to Councillor Parker. Be it resolved that the agenda of the Safety and Standing Policy Committee meeting of May the 16th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unless there's any additions or deletions, and I'm going by what the city clerk is nodding, I would just call up the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And moved by Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, consent agenda 4.0, be it resolved that the minutes of the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee meeting held on April the 18th, 2024 be approved, and the chair and city clerk designate be authorized to sign and seal the same. Further, be it resolved that the status of initiatives for May 16th, 2024 be received as information. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Do we have any changes or questions with regard to the agenda?
there are none.
Seeing none, then I will call for the vote.
Okay, the vote's been called. All in favor? That motion carries.
So now we're on to presentation.
All right, so the first presentation, excellent, is the whole gallery, it looks like. Lethbridge Public Library. Ms. Plato, please come forward.
Everyone enjoys a good city council meeting.
All right. You have 3 minutes and 32 seconds.
Gosh. I'll talk fast.
All right, go right ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here today along with our board chair, Craig Brown, to present the 2023 annual report on behalf of the City of Lethbridge Library Board. Next slide, please. The 2023 report to the community and board report highlight the activities and accomplishments for the library in the past year. These are driven by the board's strategic goals and grounded in the library's mission, vision, and values. Next slide, please. In 2023, we saw growth in usage of library services in almost all areas. It was actually one of our highest use years ever, with it being our highest use year ever for ebook usage and website visits. Our second highest year for number of memberships, falling just short of the record, which was in 2019. Our third highest year for overall circulation, again falling just short of tying for second. And of note, our number of new memberships grew 58% from 2022 to 2023, which means that more people are discovering the library than ever before. Taking into account the operational budget reduction in 2022, which resulted in a 17% reduction in our open hours, on a per open hour basis, the library is seeing more usage than ever. So to give you an idea of what this looks like, every day that the library is open, 865 people walk through our doors, 3,400 items are checked out, our e-services are accessed 3,700 times, 148 people attend a program, 66 people sign up or renew a library card, and 208 patron questions are answered. Next slide, please. We began 2003 with the launch of CBC's Lethbridge Bureau, which drew a crowd of over 2,000. We also began an ongoing program partnership with CBC that includes cultural workshops and programs like the Family New Year's Eve Party. LPL's first facilities master plan was completed with more than 18 months of work by the library board, management, and staff, as well as many community partners and stakeholders. The Word on the Street Festival returned for its 13th year with more than 3,300 people in attendance, and we welcomed Arts Days to the festival in partnership with the Allied Arts Council. and we once again were pleased to offer no-fee memberships. Overall, we saw a 12% increase in library memberships last year. Next slide, please. The Crossings branch underwent an expansion and enhancement project to increase and better layout space for the users of this branch. The Crossings branch provides a neighborhood space that is a versatile haven for work, study, recreation, and social interaction. What staff have seen since the renovations is that with the new spaces created for families, teens, and Indigenous youth, people are spending more time in the library. Programs like the popular Big Truck Petting Zoo continue to see success, with almost 11,000 people attending a program at the Crossings branch last year. And last year expanded their book bin delivery program, nearly tripling the amount of bins available since its inception in 2020. This expands the library's reach to residents throughout the community and at the same time increases uses of the library's mobile branch. Next slide, please. Library programs provide an opportunity for connection while also exposing attendees to something new to stimulate learning, imagination, or creation. Programs like Parent Connect and Summer in the Square help to connect families to community resources and spaces. Multi-generational programs like Grand Time allow children to learn with their grandparents, and our French Storytime provides an engaging opportunity for the Francophone and immersion communities. Our teen programs focus on building connections, literacy skills, and exploring common interests in a welcoming, judgment-free environment, which is so important in helping teens build resiliency and safe social spaces in our community. Next slide, please. One of the ways the library serves the entire community is by providing a diverse array of programs and services that reflect the unique makeup of our community. The Indigenous Services staff provide resources to learn about and engage in local Indigenous culture using traditional knowledge and ways of knowing and doing. Highlights in 2023 were the Métis Jig and Jam, the monthly Spirit Cafe, which is a partnership with Alberta Health Services, local Indigenous artisan markets, and events that mark the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Next slide, please. Read On Adult Literacy and Learning focuses on supporting adult and English language learners and provides resources that support new Canadians in skill and language building that also supports a diverse workforce in our community. In 2023, students from Japan, China, South Korea, Iran, and Costa Rica got together once a week to discuss and enjoy a novel in book talk class. And the Conversation Cafe serves temporary foreign workers who are not eligible for other language instruction opportunities. Next slide, please. And finally, Information Services supports a broad range of demographics through programs, technology, and collections. They provided a wide variety of opportunities for Lethbridge residents to learn, innovate, and explore last year. The Banff Mountain Film Festival returned with more than 660 people in attendance. Provincial election forums provided an opportunity for voters to become informed. 400 people attended a stand-in home and garden show at the library, which also complemented the expansion of our seed library. And we also began offering an opportunity to explore new technology with the Happiness Program projector and a virtual reality headset. Next slide, please. In closing, we'd like to acknowledge all of our funders, donors, volunteers, and partners that support us in serving the community. Thank you for allowing us to present today, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the presentation. Specifically? Like what the heck are bins?
A book delivery bin. So what used to happen with the Bookmobile is they would deliver schools and classes would come out to the Bookmobile and visit. What we have found over the years is it's harder for teachers to do that with their classes. You have to have permission slips to take your children off property. So this is a way for us to get books into schools and other organizations in the city. So the books are delivered in bins to over 40 organizations in the city.
Okay. I'll put the floor open for questions. It looks like I'm not handling it.
Mine's not working.
Oh, perfect. You know, we've been having the occasional glitch with technology.
So it's Councillor Campbell.
So it looked like it because his is clicking. So Councillor Campbell, or is it Acting Mayor? There you go.
I don't
Acting
know.
Mayor.
Acting Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. It's kind of an esoteric sort of a question, I think, because I always enjoy your reports. But you've been in the library business for a while, and I don't know how many reports you've done, but as you take the time in a yearly report to reflect on the job, on where we've been, where you were 10 years ago, bringing it up to date, what kind of gives you pause to think about where you were, where you are now, and what you're looking forward to? Kind of a broad look, but and feel free to feel personal about it, and because, like I say, you've done the job. It's a journey.
Yeah, so I've been in public libraries for 18 years now, and certainly we've seen big changes in those 18 years. I've mentioned before at this committee that we do meet with other Canadian and Alberta public libraries on a fairly regular basis. I just attended the Canadian Urban Libraries Council meeting a couple weeks ago, and what we see is that there's very common themes across libraries of all sizes across Canada. And one of the bigger themes is the social issues that we all have to deal with in ways that are appropriate for public libraries. So we are open, welcoming, and inclusive to all, and at the same time, have to have codes of conduct that we enforce. And so many libraries have been struggling with how to do that. And so we learn a lot from other libraries, and we've learned a lot in the past while, and I would say we've had success. We did see, for instance, our number of security incidents go down by 33% last year. And so, the way we're approaching things has to be innovative and is not necessarily what it was 10 years ago. So that, I would say, would probably be the biggest change that we've seen in terms of the day-to-day practical operating of a library.
And as you move forward, what degree of optimism and resolution and all that goes into your daily thinking?
Well, the great thing is about public libraries is that we impact people's lives on a daily basis. We don't collect personal data. We try to shy away from that. So we don't necessarily know what every person is coming into the library for, what's happening, but we hear a lot of stories. And so we hear, stories of people who are able to get jobs by coming to the library and using our public computers, or who are able to, develop their English language skills, connect with family across the world, meet other parents in the community, get connected to community resources that they didn't know existed. So it's all of the people who work at the library do so because they love people and love the community, and that is really what everybody looks forward to doing when they come into work every day.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Crowson.
Thank you. You mentioned the big truck petting zoo, which I know is coming again, and I think it's expanded this year. So if you want to just kind of highlight the changes and what more people can expect this year.
I wish I had the details to share with you, and I'm sorry I do not. It's been a partnership with the City of Lethbridge, and it was originally developed as a way to highlight, public ops workers and all the wonderful work done by the city to keep the community looking great and safe and all of those sorts of things. And
the computer doesn't like your answer.
Yeah, meeting's over. So we've had. I think what you might be referring to is we're going to have police cruisers and fire trucks and the vehicles that work in the parks and on the roads and that sort of thing. And the great thing about it is people get a chance to come and actually climb in the cabs of the vehicles, but they also get to talk to the people who operate those, which we think is really important because those are often the people behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. So it is very popular. Last year, it was a very rainy day and we still had 2,000 people attend. So we would encourage everybody to come out and see the trucks and get a chance to sit in a fire truck and a police cruiser.
I know many youth and their parents look forward to it. And yes, it is expanded this year from what I've read. So congrats on that one. More of a in-depth question from a governance role. If there is one thing that council could do to make the library's life easier, to make your job better and to help what you're doing, what would you want from council?
That'd be without money.
It's just a light question. Well, even just start the conversation.
There's a lot of answers to that question, and I could pick the easy one, and I think I'm not going to pick the easy one. I do think really like understanding, what the library does, having an understanding of the library beyond, it's a place for books or whatever the thought process might be, is really important because, again, many studies have been done that show how libraries impact people's lives and how the return on investment of a library is for every dollar you put in, you generally get 3 to 6 back. Like there's all of that information exists, and public libraries across the province in North America do very similar work. And so I think having a good understanding of what you're investing in is really important to decision making.
Anything you want to add?
No, not really. I think it was quite helpful when, in the past, when we had a counselor sitting at the library at the board table, and you changed all that, which is fine, I understand that. But I think that was quite helpful in terms of being a good conduit to keep the council fully informed of what we were doing. So, but the more time we get invited back, the better it is. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Councillor Croson. Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Plato, for your presentation. I'm just curious to know, here's the numbers of the increase, and if you can let me know again, membership increases last year were how many? What was the percentage?
The overall increase was 12% in membership numbers last year.
12%. Do you happen to have on your person the numbers for the last 5 years of what memberships? And so if they went up 12, have they ever dropped, or have they continued to go up? I think during COVID, I think they probably
Yes,
dropped
exactly
somewhat.
right. I do have the numbers actually. So yes, they went down over COVID because we were closed and a lot of services were halted at that time. But they generally the trend has been upwards. They went down during 2020, 21, and then they started going up in 22 again.
So do you have how many memberships you currently have? What is the number you now have?
Yeah, so the current number is 23,244 card holders. What's important to understand about that is some of those are family cards. So a card can be used by multiple people in a family. So it's not necessarily number of people, it's number of card holders.
So you would have data as far as how many of those memberships are used on a regular basis. You know, a percentage of the 23,000 are used on a regular basis. I'm talking are in every week or whatever.
Yeah, I don't have that on me right now. What I can say is those are considered active card holders. So it's defined by the Public Library Services branch of the municipal government or the municipal affairs department of Alberta, what an active card holder looks like. In our case, these are people who are actively renewing or signing up for a membership in the past year.
Okay, and so is that something you could forward off to SPC, what the active number of memberships you currently have and what that looked like over the 5 years? So let's go back 5 years. So before COVID, each year, I'd like to see what the membership numbers were as far as memberships and active memberships for each of the 5 years.
Yeah, so again, those are active. All of our cardholder numbers are active memberships, so they had to have used their card in the last year. I can definitely give you those numbers for the last 5 years. I'm not sure if we can dig deeper into usage rates. It really depends on whether our integrated library system software can give us that data. I'm not aware if it can, but I can look into that more.
Yeah, okay. Even the numbers over the last 5 years, what were the active memberships and 5 years ago and going forward? And if data, I would think, with data, it's great to have the data, but if we don't use it, so I would hope that the software would say, okay, well, John White was in 27 times over last year. Don't need name, but you'd like to know if active memberships, how many are active as in a weekly basis, or did they check in one time, renew their membership, and haven't been there? If you can get that data and supply it, would be great, and would hope that you'd have it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we are limited by the software. There's not, library software doesn't have huge amounts of dollars behind it, so we are limited by the limitations of that software. But I can definitely see what we can pull in terms of usage. The other thing to be aware of is somebody can use the library without using their card, and in fact, that's very common. You use your card only if you're checking out items, but that doesn't indicate if you're coming and renting a room or going to a program, those sorts of things. So the card holders is one set of data that tells us one set of things, but it doesn't talk about all the activities that happen at the library.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Chair Middleton Hope, and thank you very much, Ms. Plato, for being here to present to us today. Certainly appreciate it and appreciate all the hard work that goes on at the library. Congratulations on the new website. I was very excited to see that come to fruition, so congratulations on that. And I can tell Mary Higgin that I actually was using my library card right before this to check out a couple books and a magazine. So, I mean, you can count me amongst your stats on that. We did talk about, given the increase in numbers, so we've seen some significant increases over this past year from last year's report. What do you think, particularly around the card numbers and memberships, what do you think you can attribute those increase in numbers to?
Well, I guess what I would say is prior to the pandemic is we had been seeing an upward trend. So obviously the pandemic halted all sorts of things. You know, we didn't do programming for a couple of years and that sort of thing. So there was a big question amongst libraries again, what does post-pandemic look like for public library use? And I would say that we are seeing some shifts in how the public library is used, and that's now just becoming obvious. So for example, you no longer have to physically come into the library to sign up for or renew a card. And so you can do that online. And so the accessibility of the library, being able to sign up for a card online, start using the online resources right away, would encourage people to sign up who maybe had not before. We also have, again, since 2019, we do a lot of programming. So there's always many things going on. And what I hear from people, we went to the community conversation event at the NMAX a few weeks ago, and one of the things that I heard from people is that a lot of people who are moving to the city, one of the first things they do is look for the library, because they know the library is a place that, one, that will connect them to what's happening in the community, but is also, a place, to get resources to learn or do something recreational. And so I think people do seek out the library. And again, in our stats, we're seeing a big increase in the number of new members. So I think, and with everything getting more expensive, being able to go to the library and take out books and download movies and go to programs without having to pay is probably a driver in this economy for people to seek out those affordable resources more. But that's my best guesses. We don't necessarily know kind of beyond that what would be driving the increase, except for that we're always increasing our services and programs and having new things for people to access. So.
Okay, and you indicated as part of that there's no fee for a library card membership. What are the benefits of keeping that? This has been going on for some years now. What are the benefits of keeping that no fee in place?
So what it does is it makes this resource that is paid for by the municipality available to everybody. It is a barrier to access. There is no membership fee across Canada for library cards. Alberta was one of the last provinces that even allowed that. And almost certainly every larger municipality in the province did away with membership fees quite a few years ago, because it does create a barrier for people to access. And so that was an initiative that was supported and funded by Council in 2019, our 100th anniversary year for that year. And so we have been working to keep it free ever since, just to ensure that, again, everybody has access. Often the people who need access most are at least able to afford that fee. So that is a decision that the board makes yearly. And I see that Craig wants to say something.
I would add to that, it's been a challenge for us to find the funds so that we could maintain free memberships, which, as Sarah said, I think has been incredibly beneficial for everybody. But it's a challenge for us to find the funds for it. And so every year we have to sit back, go through our budget, look at where we can make some adjustments, what we can find or not find so that we can continue that. So that is an ongoing challenge for the library. It would be nice if council was to buy in to the concept of free memberships and assist us in that regard, because it's quite a challenge to do that.
Okay. And then last question I have for you is, before COVID, the main branch was open till 8 p.m. What do we need to do to get back to that level of service? Because I have had some questions about that. What do we need to do to get back to that?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so the change to operational hours was made with the budget reduction that happened in 2020. We're a very service-oriented organization, so the major part of our budget goes towards staffing. So when the budget gets cut, it generally has to come from staffing resources, and so we had to, at that point, make the decision to reduce our hours. As you said, when we ask people what they want to see at the library, more open hours is always at the top of that list. So it is a budget consideration, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mine next. I get to hold it. A couple of questions. Last year, we had discussions about security, the challenges that you are facing. You have a nice shiny new fence. So what has changed in the last year? What are we looking at in terms of enhanced access, security? What's working well? Where are some improvements needed?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this security incidents in public libraries is a common challenge across libraries. So we did pilot a crisis intervention worker project in 2022, and we did maintain that through the last year by making adjustments in other areas. We have found, again, we've seen security incidents go down, and partly it's because that crisis intervention worker works in tandem with our security team to build relationships, so we know people, who are coming into the library have a good understanding of the rules. They are enforced, the rules, and so the crisis intervention worker helps to enforce the code of conduct, and in a way that ensures that we're not unnecessarily escalating incidents, and also connects people to resources. The other changes, we've made changes to our spaces for 8 years on an ongoing basis. We're always trying to find ways to, open up sight lines, make the spaces easier to monitor, and that sort of thing. So the fencing that you mentioned really has to do with the outdoor play space that was created there. And so that, I wouldn't say has impact.
The outdoor what?
Outdoor play space. So we are working on the courtyard that fence was put adjacent to. We're installing play equipment, for lack of a better word. So basically it's programming equipment that our staff use so that we can program that space during the day. So there are things like outdoor musical instruments and balance beams and a mud kitchen out there. And so the idea is to be able to program that space when it's nice enough to do programs outdoors. And so that fencing was really to ensure that that space is secure. So we limit access to the space in that courtyard area to library open hours, so that, it's maintained to a high standard of cleanliness and safety. But it doesn't prevent people from accessing the library during open hours. So that had less to do, I would say, with security incidents than it did with just developing this space that can be used for programming.
Okay, so Mr. Brown, then, it's not a matter that you don't have enough money, it's a matter of what you're allocating the funds to.
Well, as Tara said, most of the budget is staffing, and we have desks that have to be manned while the library is open to provide the services that the community is expecting us to have in place.
Like any other business.
Absolutely, like any other business. This council asked us a couple years ago to reduce the budget. We did. The only way to do that, of course, being staff heavy, is to reduce the staff, which meant reducing the hours. We don't have an abundance of other options. If our budgets are not maintained and grow with inflation, the only outcome that we could put forward is to reduce hours further, which I don't believe the ratepayers of the city would like to see happen.
Is that the only outcome, Mr. Brown? I mean, are there not any other options like cutting back on playground space around the library?
Well, the playground space doesn't cost us anything. It's already there. We just decided we'd better make better use of the space without really any costs. The Friends of the Library and others are helping to pay for all the equipment that's going in that space, so it's not coming out of our budget at all. So that is added programming space provided without a cost to the city.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Plato? Yep.
no.
Good turn a sec. Nope. Okay. Councillor Croson?
This is a bit of a rhetorical question. It goes back to, how you can count people based on your cards. I know myself, I have about 4 places I like to go Friday afternoons to do writing. And one of them is the library. You have great Wi-Fi. I can grab a table and people watch without any issues, never show my card. So what do you think, what percentage of people who come to the library, and it's hard to estimate, actually show their card and actually would show up in the stats based on cards?
That's an excellent question to which I don't have the answer. So one of the core values and mandates of a library is that we very strongly protect people's privacy. So we only collect your information if you want us to. So you're handing us a card, you're checking out a book. So people who come into the library are counted via our gate counter, which we, in the last couple of years, upgraded to a really high quality gate counter. So basically the idea is that it recognizes people. So we know that our gate count is accurate. In the last community satisfaction survey that was done in 2022, so as a reminder, that was really during the pandemic still, we weren't programming. More than 50% of people who answered the survey said they used the library in the last year. So we know the number of people who come into the library is high, or the amount of the community that uses the library is high. And as you said, they're not all captured by those card counts. And so we keep a common set of KPIs like all libraries do. So we count our programs, our room bookings, our exam invigilations, our gate count, our card holders. And so that's what we're really looking for is, do those trend upwards? Again, that's common practice for libraries in terms of how we see how the library is being used in the community.
And when I was reading your report, I don't think it was captured, I might have missed it, but one of the things your organization does is work with a lot of not-for-profits, providing space for their programs, et cetera. Do you have an idea of how many not-for-profit groups are supported by the library through the use of space and partnerships?
So what I can say is we have partnerships in a lot of different ways, and they look different. We do keep a partnership inventory, and the last count, it was close to 90 partnerships that we have. Now, again, they all look different. A lot of our programming is called partnered programming, so the idea is to utilize community resources and help connect community resources to people and people to community resources. So a lot of our programming is done in partnership. I talked about the book bin delivery. So we take books to organizations. We have a small collection at the university and the college, for example. So those partnerships look different, but the last count was around 90.
So it would be safe to say that there's a lot of not-for-profit groups, often volunteer not-for-profit groups, that couldn't do their job without the library.
I guess I can't speak for those not-for-profit groups, but obviously, you know, that's one of the things we do. We are a highly sought-after partner by not-for-profits, and we do actually have ways of assessing who we'll partner with and who we don't, because we get a lot of requests and only so much capacity. But yeah, the library, again, it's one of the places in the community that people go because they know it's open and accessible, and so we have a wide audience, and so we are a preferred partner for lots of organizations to connect with what they're doing with the community.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Plato. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Plato. I see no further questions, so thank you for the presentation. Mr. Brown? I have a motion from Acting Mayor Campbell, Lethbridge Public Library 2023 Report to the Community 5.1. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee receive the Lethbridge Public Library
Thank you, Ms. Plato and Mr. Brown and your entire posse for being here today. It's good to see all of you. As we all know, the libraries are an integral part of any community, and in particular here in Lethbridge, it's vital. So it's important that you come before us to remind us of how important it is, and as long as we're here and you're there, we want to hear about it. So thank you for bringing the report today, and I will ask for my colleagues' support.
I see Councillor Schmidt-Rempel has a question, comment, or submission.
Just a comment so much, John. I look forward to the opening of the play space and getting into the mud kitchen. So thank you very much for that. And I also look forward to next year's election forums. As you know, we're all up for re-election next year. I look forward. I look forward to you. Yeah, he's not. I look forward to you hosting us. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Call a question. Question's been called. All in favor? I know, but I'm just still looking at you. Good. The motion carries. Thank you. All right. I apologize to Ms. Ames and Mr. Hunter Hagee for you'll have to wait a couple of moments because apparently Mr. Malcolm cannot wait, and we have to listen to his presentation now. So, Mr. Malcolm, would you please come forward?
You are likely a bit tired of seeing us present at this point. This is the end of our series of formal presentations, which began on April 11th, which has seen us come to economic, governance, and safety and social SPCs, as well as City Council. We're breaking down the different aspects that we believe will help us advance community well-being and safety in the community. Today's condensed presentation will go through things pretty quickly, but there are more details in your package. And I'll note that we are joined online by our consultants with Urban Matters, Leighton Ginther, Jen Comrie, and Jake Papineau, who are here to supplement any questions you may have on the needs assessment and the strategy itself. I'd like to thank my team for all the work getting to this point, as well as the Urban Matters folks for their work on this. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Ms. Motz to take us through the short presentation.
Thank you. Next slide, please. In 2023, Community Social Development procured and hired Urban Matters to complete an updated needs assessment for both the community well-being and safety strategy and the municipal housing strategy in order to update strategic goals and priorities. Both of these strategies were in need of revisions as they were developed in 2019, and many things about our community have changed, particularly since the pandemic, which has increased social isolation, created an affordability crisis, and housing constraints, all of which increase the risk for poverty and poor social outcomes. This work began with completing engagement sessions and research to update the municipal housing strategy and community well-being and safety strategy needs assessment, which included a total of 21 engagement sessions with 209 individuals, 61 organizations, and 5 members of City Council. The engagement for strategy updates differed significantly from the 2019 strategy, as we felt the broad community sentiment was well understood and value that we sought for the updates would be best provided through more targeted efforts with key stakeholders and individuals with lived experience. Once the needs assessments were completed, the strategies were both updated in alignment with the findings of the needs assessment. Today, we have included the updated needs assessment and community well-being and safety strategy, which focuses on renewed priorities for community safety and well-being. Further, the community well-being and safety strategy is utilized most directly by the City of Lethbridge to inform the funding disbursements from federal Reaching Home and provincial family and community support services funding portfolios. So we will also be speaking to our funding distribution process for these funds as the most immediate implementation step. Next slide, please. So this slide provides one example of an updated action item from the updated community well-being and safety strategy, which includes the timing of the action, the role of the city and greater community, along with measures of success. We wanted to highlight that this approach differs from the previous strategy by identifying roles and responsibilities outside of the city and looking at measures of success. Next slide, please. The community well-being and safety strategy is utilized most directly by the City of Lethbridge to inform the funding disbursements from federal Reaching Home and provincial FCSS funding portfolios. In 2019, this was accomplished through a request for supplier qualifications process, which comes to an end on December 31st of 2024 or March 31st of 2025, dependent on the primary funding source. CSD engaged with our purchasing and legal departments to assess and determine the best approach for the application of grant funding under the community well-being and safety strategy due to feedback from both internal and external stakeholders that the last RFSQ process was challenging and that a new funding application process needed to be explored. A call for proposals was the selected method over a formal procurement, as a call for proposals still allows for a competitive approach while maximizing community feedback and maintaining alignment with grant funding requirements from the Government of Canada and Alberta. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The call for proposals will be based on a 2-year term and outline 4 key priorities in alignment with the CWSS and the Reaching Home and FCSS funding requirements. These 4 priorities are coordinated access, preventative services, shelter diversion, and capital costs for social housing. The call will include evaluative criteria that falls within 3 categories, which includes pricing, experience and qualifications, and project approach. The evaluation panel members are expected to include city administration, both within the CSD department and outside of the department, members of the newly described and soon to be assembled Community Wellbeing Advisory Board and Lethbridge Housing Authority, who as the CBO for the province is a key stakeholder in our community and will ensure that federal Reaching Home and provincial OSSI funding, both with an emphasis on homelessness, are aligned and moving toward common outcomes as much as possible. Next slide, please. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. We'll open up to questions.
Well, thank you for the brief presentation. I don't see anybody online, so it'll be Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Chair Middleton Hope, and to Mr. Malcolm or Ms. Motz. We know that this is part of a series coming to us over the next few months, correct? Like this is part of that series.
This is actually our final presentation in that series outside of this going to the June 11th council meeting as a referral.
Okay. So my question then is, and I apologize if it's unfair, it is a big question. How does what we've received today fit into that series? Not just that it's the last one, but how does this, what we received today, fit into that larger picture?
Yeah, thank you for the question. This is a good opportunity to kind of go back to April 11th in our first presentation. So where this fits is really the strategy, which is here today, is the leading document. That is the analysis of our community and where the gaps are and the strategies that will help us advance community well-being. However, that's a strategy for our role as a city as well as the role as the community as a large. And so as we look at our, as a city, main tool that we use to implement this It is the funding that we get through the federal Reaching Home and the provincial FCSS. So the means of which we plan to take those monies and distribute them to the community was outlined at the end of this presentation, and we plan to do that through a grant process. When we put out that call for proposal for that grant award process, we have to have a committee, a board to make those evaluations. That takes us back to the governance question that conversation we've been having. We plan to assemble that community advisory board and orient them in a timeline that aligns with the closure of this call for proposal. So we have a new community advisory board who's educated and oriented, who will be receiving the closure of this package and then evaluating and making recommendations for the award of those funding. That's just really the first piece. Then the CWSS as a strategy and the actions, we look at the next steps. So this is the biggest piece, but it's certainly not the only piece.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Crowson?
Thank you. Thank you for not only the strategy, but there was a lot of information in here, all sorts of things. I know you have some of the consultants online as well. So when I was drilling down, one of the things I noticed is that Medicine Hat is growing faster than us, but has less growth in the number of households. So that's suggesting to me they're either doing more apartments or something. Did anybody drill down into that? Because I find that quite fascinating that they must have figured out a way to actually build denser than we're building.
Thank you for that question. I do believe that is one of the first questions on an early draft that our team had for our consultants. So I'm going to turn things over to Leighton and team to best answer that.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks for the question. Maybe just a little bit of context for the committee in terms of our team itself. So Jake is our lead on the CWSS side, and so he'll be able to answer questions related to content related to the CWSS. Jen has been active on the engagement side and on housing. Both her and I have been on housing and can speak to sort of engagement, who we've connected with, and process. And then I've been leading our team through the exercise, so I can add some color. I think I'll pass this question. I do remember the question coming up. Maybe I'll pass it over to Jake just for some broader context on the comparison between Medicine Hat and Lethbridge.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leighton, and thanks for the question. I would say the biggest thing that we're trying to figure out too is, like, again, what is causing this discrepancy, and some of the reasons that we've been able to identify are just slightly larger family sizes. And so depending on the size of the household, you might have a population that's growing, being driven by internal growth, so couples having children, whereas in other communities, perhaps as the case in Lethbridge, that it might be people moving to the community either as singles or in pairs, looking to start a career or start a family. And so depending on the timeline of the data, it's possible that we see some of these things start to change when the next census comes out. These are kind of backwards facing indicators in a lot of cases, given that most of the data that we were looking at was from the 2021 census. So things can change very, very quickly, but at that point in time, the biggest driving factor that we could identify was just slightly larger family sizes.
Okay. I was really hoping they had figured out how to densify and we could steal that idea, but I guess I'll wait to see what the next census brings us. When I was going through some of the recommendations, some of the things that are needed, it's number 13 that struck me as the one that makes me both sad and hopeful at the same time. That trust and collaboration is needed and that we need to work on that. I know some of the background of how we got to where trust and collaboration maybe broke down, but what I'd like to go is more for the hopeful. What is your department doing to change that going forward?
So if I can hopefully speak pretty frank, I think it's not just with our department, I think it's with City Council as well. And I think we've taken some really proactive steps in the last few months. That was really the focus on trying to figure out this advisory board situation, getting clarity. We had a number of members who sat and gave a lot of their time on those advisory boards who felt like sometimes their work and their voice wasn't being heard if they weren't actually the ones who were being trusted with their perspectives. And beyond that, and I came up with former Councillor Rami Yashiro's comments, is our department's commitment to get out and engage more with the community and build those levels of trust. It was a prior position of department in prior years that we had a very specific and tight responsibility as a community social development department, and that was to distribute funds. And so I think we've rethought that whole process. We want to give trust to the Community Advisory Board. We want to put them into a position to make good, transparent decisions. And then our department, we want to spend more time engaging with the community in real and authentic ways and build those partnerships up. So I think it's a multifaceted approach, but it's something that we knew we had to do before this strategy was even developed. And the strategy has reinforced that is something that we definitely need to focus on.
Right, and with the new way we're now doing it, making it an administrative committee, hopefully taking some of the politics out of it, hopefully we can rebuild some of those relationships as well.
That is our hope.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Malcolm. Thank you, Chair.
Looks like Acting Mayor Campbell is on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the consultants here, I'm just curious, in a broad sense of what you did. I wonder, what were you asked to do? Then what were some of the tasks you had to take on, and what were some of the glaring issues that you discovered? And then ultimately, I guess you've come up with these recommendations. But can you kind of take us through your process and what your thoughts as you got to your conclusions? Kind of a broad thing, but if you can try to answer that to whoever wants to take it.
Maybe I can start, and Jen and Jake can for sure fill in the details. So yeah, from the outset, even building off Andrew's comments, we recognize the importance of connecting with community. So that much of the first half of the exercise, frankly, was generating and undertaking analysis from a data perspective. So quantitative analysis that you would have seen in the needs assessment, but we felt it was really important, and we heard this directly from CSD, that needed to be balanced with qualitative information as well. And so that was where we engaged with multiple stakeholders and partners within the community to really understand current condition and current status. And that's where we heard some of that feedback, some of that questioning around, what's different from the previous exercise. And then based on that analysis, we were able to identify sort of some key findings that then helped inform the strategies, both the MHS and the CWSS going forward. And then we came back to the community and those same stakeholders to check in and to sort of indicate, did we hear this correctly? Here's some of the information that we heard you share with us, and here's how it's playing out in the strategies themselves. And we sort of had validation and to Andrew's point, a renewed commitment from some of those stakeholders and partners within the community to collaborate with the city to try to achieve and advance common goals. So that would be at a very high level. That would be the process that we've undertaken. But yeah, Jen and Jake, anything that I've missed that you'd want to expand on?
Yeah, I would say I described the project as iterative. So in terms of the way that we approach the project, going from initially responding to the RFP and then also getting to know the CSD team, I would say that there were multiple moments in the project where we kind of shifted our approach more towards the listening and engagement to really do the smell test on a lot of the content that we were developing, because with a lot of these data sets, it creates one picture of what's happening within the community, but the folks that live and work and operate in the community know the community better than any of these data sets. So we purposefully built in a lot of iteration into the process so that as we were getting through some of these key milestones, we were sharing back with the CSD team and community organizations to make sure that we were on the right track. And we did so at those key points to make sure that we didn't, put too much time or energy into developing recommendations that don't make sense. And so through those conversations, we really identified just the importance of it being a community-facing and community-owned document as well. So focusing on those roles and responsibilities. And through the process, I think there was a lot of progress made on those relationships with organizations. So yeah, I would describe the whole process as iterative, and I would say the recommendations really emerged organically through both engagement and the data analysis and the conversations that we continue to have.
Maybe one other thing just to mention to build on that was this notion of implementation focused. And we heard that from the CSD team. They wanted a plan that would provide some direction and could be actionable and would help sort of prioritize effort going forward. And so that was, and that also, we heard that loud and clear from the community partners and stakeholders that they too wanted to be sort of action focused and implementation focused. And so that's part of the good news, I think, coming out of the exercise is this coordinated perspective on reaching some common goals and advancing some things together and rebuilding some of that, that trust and that commitment to, move the dial on some pretty challenging issues within the community.
Yep. Great response. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. And seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Malcolm. Motion presented by Councillor Parker, Community Wellbeing and Safety Strategic Updates and Funding Disbursement Process 5.2. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council adopt the updated Community Wellbeing and Safety Strategy as a guiding document, and 2, accept the call for proposals modeled to allocate the federal Reaching Home fines, I guess that's funds, and provincial family and community support services funds as information. All right, Councillor Parker, if you can figure that out, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, I want to thank Jake, and I want to thank Leighton and Mr. Malcolm, of course, for their presentation. There's a lot of information that got to go over here, even though it is condensed. I know members of this committee have had some questions, and will you gentlemen be present at the council meeting if questions come by from my other colleagues? I know most of my colleagues are here, but will you be present in 2 weeks at our next council meeting? Oh, not next council, but the council meeting after. I'm guessing that's when it'll be going for final ratification.
Andrew, I'm not sure if you want to respond to that. I mean, we're always happy to support discussion, but yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts?
So myself and our team will definitely be available, and maybe I'll look to the Urban Matters team to see if they can make themselves available. Within, I guess, our current commitment was to have them here at this SBC and not at the council meeting, but I'll leave that to the Urban Matters team on their availability. But our team will certainly
it's not a
be
big
there.
deal. And it's not a big deal. I just said it was curiosity.
Thank you. Councillor Parker?
Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, I would just call the question.
All right, the question has been called. All in favor? And that motion passes. Thank you. Yeah, we do. I wonder if Mr. Hunter Hagee and Ms. Amies could come forward. We have I will. We have a resolution from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force update. Be it resolved that the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee receive the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force update as information. I will leave it to Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. If there are any questions.
Are there any questions from my colleagues with regards to this submission?
It looks like Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, I just want to get a sense of how is the collaboration between all of the organizations that are involved with this. Are you well? I mean, you're getting along, I hope. But I mean, how is the input? How valuable is it? And where are you right now today?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us today. Appreciate that very much. I'll try to answer this as best I can. Just to make everybody feel at home, I thought I could use lots of acronyms, like the DT.
NATO.
Yeah, I'll just ASAP do the DT, LR, TF, TOR, PDQ. A-okay?
Thank you very much. All right.
Anyways,
call the question.
Thanks. Well, we started off a little bit rocky, to be truthful, because we had to find our feet. And as we got going, things got better. And I would say a month ago, it might have been 6 weeks ago, we had a meeting that really went well. And we had kind of found our groove. And so I think we're really making progress now. And I'm looking forward to see what we can do over the next 6 months.
Thank you, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
We see a lot of documents in the list. Where are those publicly available?
I do not know that. Where are they available?
They're on the city website. Thank you, Mr. Sarsfield.
I guess there's no other questions, but I will have a question. Ms. Amies, you represent the Business Revitalization Zone downtown. What is the, and this initiative was in large part as a result of the BRZ coming forward and requesting assistance in managing some of the challenges that you are facing. Do you have anything that you would like to impart to us in regards to perhaps changes that you may or may not have seen in the last 6 months?
I'm on. Yeah, I think, in the last 6 months, as we've sat around the table, we've got to understand what each organization or city department can and cannot do. We understand the limitations. Obviously, we would love to see the downtown flooded with police officers, and there's massive limitation in that area. So it has been really, really good to sort of get a much better understanding of what people can do. The fact that we are all working together towards some common goals is also really important, I think. We are seeing more sort of shared information about common goals like fire mitigation, for instance. I'm going to get the Lethbridge Emergency Fire people to come and chat with the downtown membership about fire mitigation. We'll be doing the same with Lethbridge Police Services, potentially bylaw as well. So it's been a great conduit to sort of open up the information from various organizations, departments, etc., to the membership, because often there will be a number of different stories or solutions circulating. And so to be able to clarify for the community what it is we're concentrating on, what we're looking to do, what we can do within our purview at this point is, I think, really important.
Thank you for that. You've touched on some of the actions that are actually occurring as opposed to the dialogue. And I'm wondering if you or Mr. Hagee could provide us with some additional insights into some of the actions that are occurring.
Go ahead.
I could, if you'd like. Yeah, some of the things on there, the agencies, the fire and emergency services are doing fire prevention, investigations, and removing biohazardous material. LPS on their downtown beat unit and the crime suppression team. They have also the property crimes team, and they've done a couple of blitzes of late. Regulatory services, bylaw 6280. That has been a big improvement. That was in before, but we're learning more about it and being able to use it better. The city's done a good job on encampments, I feel. The SEPTED program is something we can use, all the businesses can use to make their places safer, their businesses and homes. Clean sweep and graffiti removal for the BRZ itself, and shelter, housing, and health from the LHA. I think those are some of the things.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
And just a comment for clarification, LPS had those blitzes well underway, and we're preparing on those last year because that was something that was received at the commission level in and around November last year before they put their policing plan forward.
True.
Good. I see no other questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. The motion. Yeah. Motion has been read. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Seeing no other questions or comments from my colleagues, I will call for the vote.
Vote's been called. All in favor? Motion carries. And we are adjourned. Thank you. We can ask another question?